Hey channel, Fernando from SkyFi Audio. Well, this is the venerable Technics SL-1000R, the flagship of the Technics lineup. And I made a review of this turntable probably 4 or 5 months ago. It's a wonderful piece. And I promised at the time that we were going to add some arms to it, kind of take it to the next level. And that's what we're going to do in this video. You're going to see me essentially install one of these, which is an arm board. For an extra arm. There are 3 locations you can pop this baby in, depending on the length of the Tonerarm. So you're going to watch me essentially take this thing apart. You're going to see me fumble. It's not the easiest task in the world. I initially put the arm upside down. I kept missing which screws were indicated in the manual for taking it apart. But I got through it. So hang tight. We're going to take about 10-15 minutes and go through what it took to get to this level. And then we're going to calibrate it, put a cartridge on it, and see how it performs and how functional it is. I've done a lot of Tonerarm turntables, and they tend to be a little clunky. The second arm is difficult to reach and operate. So I chose this arm specifically for its ease of use. It's an EP100 or EH100. But yeah, it's an EPA 100 MK2. It's a beautiful piece of art. And I chose it because it's not just rock solid, but it's a Technics arm. So it's meant to go on this thing. So I figured that was our best shot at getting something ergonomic, easy to operate, that would perform well. So rather than experimenting with third-party arms, which is very possible if you want, they do make one of these arm boards that is blank, so you could drill your own Tonerarm mounting spot. So rather than going down that path, I chose the easy road, and this is what I got. So hang in there, 10-15 minutes, jump right in. While we sell tons of different used turntables, we focus on one brand and one brand only for new, and that's Technics. We absolutely love the brand, so hope to earn your business in the process of making these videos. SkyFiAudio.com is our website. You can configure just about any turntable in the Technics lineup, and you can choose all sorts of cool options. We've got a 12-step calibration. We have cartridges from Sumiko, from Hana, and you can even supply your own cartridge and send it in, and we'll mount it for you. So SkyFiAudio.com, and then just go to Collections and Techniques so you can configure your own dream turntable. This is a 10-inch EPA 100 MK2. You can tell it's MK2 variant because of the finish color. It's in black. The MK1 did come in silver. It uses ruby bearing surfaces. I don't know if you can make that out here. There's like a red, about 1/8 of an inch thick bearing surface, which is pretty cool. This is rubies is what is used in watchmaking to make sure that you have the absolute least amount of friction between 2 moving components. So it is a titanium, boron titanium. I don't know what that means. I imagine titanium is the material and the boron is the coating on it. Here we got EPA 100 MK2. The anti-skate goes from 0 to 3, pretty standard stuff, but check this out. The lifting mechanism is super cool. Instead of it going up and down, which is the only thing people complain about on some of the Techniques, this lifting mechanism is a lateral move, and it locks into place with a nice satisfying click. Love this piece. Techniques branded up top, and it's got a really neat counterweight as well, with graduations both in the back and in the front. So I've ordered an arm board for this. I'm going to make another video where I'll decide the position of this secondary Tonerarm, what cartridge we're going to put on, etc. So make sure you subscribe if you want to be notified when this second video comes out. And while we're talking about it, please guys, give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. It's what keeps bringing these videos to you. We stay motivated. If the videos do well, but they don't, I start focusing on other things. So if you want to see more of this stuff, I would love a comment. Just comment on something. Let me know what you think of this Tonerarm, what you think of the price of the SL-1000. Even if you've got ideas on what the next generation of the 1200G should be, I would love to hear from you guys. I know Technics is watching, so if you got a wish list, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. I'll make sure that that makes it to them. At the bottom, we've got the mounting bracket, and then instead of DINs, it looks like they've gone with RCA jacks. And something I've never seen before, check this cable out. This came with this Tonerarm. Something I've never seen before. It's essentially a molded connector with 2 RCA jacks and then the ground embedded right into it. Pretty cool, especially because you're usually fumbling around underneath the turntable without seeing what you're doing. And it's really hard to make these connections. And this particular model, they made it so it's super easy to both have the line level and the ground be made on the same connector. Pretty cool. I wish this had caught us as standard. Got some position options. I'm going to look at the dimensions and see if we can have it on the left position, see if it geometrically will work, and if not, how we'll do in the rear position, which is right about here somewhere. In terms of cartridges, on the 1200G, we absolutely love the Sumiko Starling. It does incredibly well on the test bench and playing records. This turntable, on the other hand, could probably do a step up from this. Calibration 40 or the pair with Calibration would be a nice upgrade to this turntable, and that's probably what we'll do on the primary position. But I'd love to hear from you guys what you think I should do on the secondary arm. Should we do a moving coil, moving magnet, maybe a mono cartridge? I hear all sorts of ideas as to what and why you should do at a secondary position, but I'd love to hear from you guys what you've done in your own rig and what do you recommend for us. Market for this particular piece or any other Technics turntable, I'd encourage you, please give us a chance. SkyFiaudio.com is where you'll find us. We've got a really industry unique 12-step calibration process that we offer to our clients where we've got a very dedicated test bench. I'm going to start walking towards it while I describe it. So we've developed a 12-step process and really just to hone in, not just the Technics turntable, but really our game in turntable calibration. We've done dozens and dozens just this year alone. This is the bench that we designed for this purpose. It's everything that we need in one spot. And we've got some pretty specialized equipment here. Not just the bench was specifically made for it, for the right height, but we've got our assortment of tools that we use on a day-to-day basis. Get a nice sturdy platform for it, all the connections we need. We've got our Roden Schwartz audio analyzer, which we're able to do some of the fine adjustments with. That kit alone is like $20,000. Got a scope, we've got a tube preamp, we've got our photometer, which I always forget and leave on. So really, look at all these test records. I mean, we'll use 3 or 4 of these in our calibration process to get it just right. And then we're lucky enough to get a set of Wally tools. We use this religiously as well. We've got both their Wally skate and their calibration disc, and this is an invaluable tool in our setup. So yes, the 12-step calibration process can be added to any of the Technics turntables, whether you purchase a cartridge from us or supply your own cartridge. All right, so here's the task at hand. I've got this EPA 100 MK2 Tonerarm from Technics. Wonderful vintage Tonerarm, just about 1 generation away from what is currently being produced, as found on the SP10 or on the SL-1000 or 1000R. And this is an arm board specifically for that Tonerarm, so we should have a real delightful time mounting this on here. Immediately noticeable is the heft of this piece, the solid machined aluminum, beautiful brush finish on it, anodized. And it's got this locating pin here and some sort of material for the mating sections. There are no holes on the arm board. It's going to be a clamp style, and that's what we show here. So first order of business is going to be to remove these guys. So how do we arrive at this Tonerarm? Well, you know we're Technics fans, so obviously we're going to try to stay within the brand for our first additional Tonerarm. And this one's different enough and cool enough to fit the bill. As mentioned before, it's got a really neat integrated grounding lug there. And these ruby stones are just so cool. And by far the best lifter I've ever felt. I wish the current Technics had this style lifter rather than the flip down. You see, that's the motion for activating it. All right, so I imagine that's the top. And this is going to be our task. Beautiful fit, that's great. And it's going to be as simple as putting this back. And later we'll orient it. So one thing to keep in mind on the 1000R is that not every length fits on every position. There are a total of 3 positions for Tonerarms, and you have to be mindful of the length of the Tonerarm for it to have the correct pivot to spindle distance. So there's a good chart out there that illustrates that for us. I'm going to tighten this just slightly so it doesn't rock. And yes, I am using a battery-powered screwdriver, but I'm too lazy to get up and get a new battery for it, so I am using it manually, old school. So here is the end result. I once set the orientation until we're on the turntable. Right here I've got a secondary Tonerarm. I'm not quite sure what this fits, or a secondary arm board. But these come in a bunch of different flavors, right, from Technics. And you can also buy a blank universal one that hasn't been drilled in case you've got an arm that isn't on their short list of arms you can add. And here's our specimen. All right, so position-wise, obviously this is position number 1. Position number 2 is here in the back left. Position number 3 is here on the left side of the turntable. Now this is a super heavy piece, so I'm going to need some help getting this onto our cart. All right, looking at the instructions, you'd think I would have started with this, but I'm a typical guy that instructions come after the attempt. So it looks like we've got to remove the SP10 drive from the table itself. Got to do some gymnastics over here, get the unit on its side. And then use these levers that are included to pull out the drive unit. And then we'll access underneath the drive unit and remove these filler plates. Now the arm board attaches to the SP10 drive, not to the plinth itself, which makes perfectly good sense. And I'm pretty sure I mounted that Tonerarm upside down. So that's pretty funny. Here they refer to the 3 locations. And the process of dropping the unit back onto the plinth. Here's the alignment pin with the holes on it, etc., etc. Another thing worth noting is the arm boards. Here's the blank one, where you drill yourself. And then we've got a SME for the M29R, the Technics EPA 100, which is what we're doing today. Here's the slotted SME 12R. That's also a great arm. Then moving on to some Ortofon arms, AS212S, 212D, short type, long type, Gelco SA250, Gelco SA750, Ikeda IT345, and IT407. So about 10 arm boards, but really the universal makes it, as it implies, universal or unlimited. First order of business is to remove the super heavy platter, and for that we've got this really cool kit that comes with a turntable and these little lifting handles for it. We also have this platter protector, which is, as we learned on the 1200G, is critical because if you slip with the screwdriver, the soft brass top is exactly that, soft. So we want to make sure we don't scratch it, and ask me how I know that. So I'm going to remove these 3 screws and then come back in a sec. And just like on the 1200G, we've got 2 sets of washers per hole. One is sort of a crush washer, a little Belleville washer, and then just a regular flat. And look at these screws. Got to line up the paper to the holes, so we can insert the handles. The other thing I've learned is you've got to have a place to drop this when you're ready to set it down. So you're going to have to prepare ahead of time. I got a nice spot right behind me. So I'm going to go straight up. And there it is. And this looks just like the G. It's got a top cover. Here is our motor, which is quite an upgrade from the 1200G motor, which is already pretty spectacular to begin with. All right, next in the manual it says you've got to put this puppy on its side and get to some screws in the bottom. I'm going to do that. All right, that's my helper for the day. That's Dante. 7 mounting screws we're looking for. Location, so 3, 2, 7. So I suspect that's going to be these 3. All right, now we're going to set this puppy back down. It's telling you to support it on blocks, and we've got these here. We're going to balance it on that. All right, flipboard to that side. Lift. Okay, and hold and balance for me. Okay. All right. Just like on the G, it's important not to put any stress or weight on these feet. They're fairly delicate. So that's why when you sort of put them on their side, they need to be, make sure you don't press on an angle, because the rubber will, or the rubber on these feet will break. And it's an important part of the suspension system. All right, now I'm going to try to lift this puppy out. I got the handles. Oh, I've relocated the handles from the platter. Now they're sitting here on the... All right, what you did not see me do off camera was we tilted the turntable up on 2 of the blocks and took out 2 additional location screws, these guys right here. So really at the end of the day, all 9 screws should be out. Not the ones here on the center of the drive unit, but really it's the perimeter, and not really all of them, because over by the Tonerarm, there's a couple that need to be left in place. So 9 screws total. Make sure you really follow this diagram. Don't do like I did. We've had to put this thing aside almost 3 or 4 times to get them all. So now it's up on cushions. That's so you don't crush the cable. And I'm going to put the handles, pull it. It's going to require quite a bit of a tug to get it out, and we're going to set it right over there. Come out. All right, so this is what the resulting endeavor looks like. The SP10 drive unit is here. Quite a bit of aluminum there. And here is the plinth itself, which is absolutely stunning. All right, so here's the screws to remove the inserts for the arm boards. As the manual indicates, we've got this arm board here, which is the EPA 100 MK2, and they're referring to it as the short type, which means that we refer back to this diagram to determine its ultimate placement, which is going to be in the back of the unit, which is great because on our rack we've got a reel-to-reel sitting to the left of this, so it's going to have the clearance for it. If we had a longer Tonerarm, probably 10-12 inches, it would probably go in this location here. So it's the short one, it's going to go in the back. To do that, fairly straightforward. I've got to remove this sort of filler plate right here. And this is just a filler panel that... All right, I suspect now what we have to do is turn this puppy upside down and attach the arm board to it. And this is how I mounted it upside down. I got a feeling what needs to happen at this point is it's going to attach from underneath in this orientation here. So what I've decided to do is actually mount the arm board prior to putting the arm in place. It'll make it a lot easier to handle. This is our final location. This is the back of the thing. So we've got, I think, about 3 screws to secure in place. Now there's no torque specification, but I'm probably going to use a torque wrench, so at least that I get all 3 of them at the same pressure. So I've arbitrarily chosen 5 Newton meters, which seems just a bit above finger tight. Kind of feels right. I do wish they'd specified a torque setting. And I'm going to tighten them in sequence. There's the click. So this is what we're looking like so far. And I think, because this overhangs, I think I'm going to still wait to put the Tonerarm on it, so that it makes it a little easier to handle. All right, here's my attempt at putting it back in its rightful place. Dante, can you pull this wire out for me? Yeah, that feels right.
Cool.
Okay, now we're gonna go back on the side. Okay, I secured the first screw at 45-degree angle so we don't lose the entire drive unit. And now the rest are pretty easy to get in place. This last location requires that you take off a foot. All right, and then I'm gonna tighten them off camera. Before calibrating, we need to make sure essentially the mounting locations are proper. So I brought out my trusty Fikert protractor. It's a great piece. I use this almost every day. And what it does is it allows us to measure the pivot to spindle distance using this little scale right here. So I did a couple of measurements, and the first thing to my surprise is that they're not the same. And I had a little moment of panic thinking, oh my God, is that the right arm board for it, or what is going on? But sure enough, I was able to then Google both Tonerarms, and they do have, in fact, different pivot to spindle differences. Pivot to spindle is essentially the distance between the center of the record and the point at which the arm pivots. And in the Technics, it's really easy to locate. On some Tonerarms, it's really difficult, but in the Technics, they've got a bearing on the top with a little screw on it. And what I've done is I've modified my Fikert protractor to essentially mate with that spot just perfectly. So the protractor comes with essentially a pin that is pointy, but it's kind of hard to locate a pointy pin on a screw head. So I went and machined a flathead on it. And that lets me just dial it in beautifully. So I can loosen this up and then locate this right on the screw head. As soon as I tighten that up, I'm able to reference the distance, which is 239 on this modern Tonerarm, the one that's included. Now, alternatively, on the EPA 100, you've got to remove this tiny little cap here, and it exposes the same bearing surface. And sure enough, if I were to locate this again, my resulting measurement is in fact 235. So, all right, disaster averted. We're in great shape here. So which is an actual better arm of these two? I'd love to hear from you guys. I see features on the EPA 100 that I don't see on the stock arm. Particularly, I don't see the ruby bearings. This lifter is far superior. And there's extra stuff on the counterweight. I suspect it has something to do here in the back. It's, the brochure states that this arm has dynamic dampening. So I gotta read up on that a bit and see what exactly it does. And I do see that there's some sort of fluid in here. So stay tuned on that. But if you have an opinion, I'd love to hear from you guys. Leave it in the comments below, please. Now, one of my favorite features of every single Technics Tonerarm is essentially the ability to adjust the vertical tracking angle, essentially the height of the arm. They most always have a little locking lever, and then by turning this large knob here, you can essentially affect the height of the arm. It's got great friction, great feedback, no slop whatsoever, and it's got little graduations here to let you know exactly what your setting is. And that's important for Technics because of the removable head shell. Absolute favorite feature of all the Technics turntables is the fact that you can remove the head shell and swap it with a different cartridge. Now, if changing the height was more difficult than that, then you probably would change cartridges a lot less frequently. But since it's just a matter of rotating this knob here and getting to the right number, you can actually have cartridges with different geometries and adjust for them really quickly. Similar note, both the anti-skate and the tracking foes have numbers on them. So swapping between cartridges is just a matter of matching the anti-skate to the number that you want. And same for the tracking weight. You can literally zero out one cartridge. For example, let's say you have a cartridge at 2 grams. You can literally zero that out and then just make a note of what the second cartridge, what number this needs to be at to get the target weight. We do a lot of setups where we use a Sumiko cartridge, and then we'll use maybe a HANA mono cartridge, and it's just a matter of setting 2 grams for one and then backing off to 1 point something for the other, and off you go. So a cartridge swap can take literally under 1 minute. A couple of additional cool features with this Tonerarm is the head shell. It's unlike any other Technics head shell that I've seen, even the modern ones. It's got a really neat acrylic numbering system there, so you can set your overhang. Not sure how necessary it is, but it's a nice little touch. Super high quality piece. And lastly, the cable. We talked about this earlier, where they've integrated the ground wire right into the RCA jacks. I wish this had taken off. I've only seen it on Technics. I'm sure someone else has this, but boy, wouldn't it be nice if you could make all 3 connections in one shot. It would certainly eliminate a lot of phone calls of people calling me asking me why their turntable is humming. So you just insert this and you get all 3 connectors. Not sure if I mentioned this before, but this Tonerarm is actually a vintage Tonerarm. It's no longer in production by Technics, so you'd have to probably source it from Japan. That's generally where they mostly lived. Exactly what I did. I have a few great contacts in Japan that are able to source good quality stuff for us. So if you're interested in one of these Tonerarms as a package with one of the Technics tables, drop us a note. Sure enough, a quick search on Vinyl Engine yielded a brochure, which is super cool. Now I've noticed that the first thing here is that it's part of the RMB series, which is a naming convention I've only heard used once before, and I'll show you that. This here is a Technics 10A02, the rarest or second rarest of all Technics reel-to-reel machines. This is in fact the RMB series as well. Now there's some controversy about what exactly it means. I've heard people say it's radio and broadcasting. I've had all sorts of opinions on what it meant, but this is the only other time I've seen it on a Technics piece. And again, this is the 2-track 10A02. This is sort of like bridging the gap between residential and pro audio. Moving on to this variable dynamic damping universal Tonerarm with ruby ball bearings. You can get an internal look at the back part of the Tonerarm. And sure enough, there is both oil dampening in here, rubber membrane keeping the oil in place, and an internal weight that is adjustable with a magnet in the back. Very cool. I can't wait to calibrate this and see what that does exactly. Then they make reference to the ultra-low friction ruby ball bearing suspension. Those of you that are watch fans, ruby is a precious jewel often used in pivoting surfaces as a bearing. So it's nice to see it on a Tonerarm where you need the absolute lowest amount of friction possible. So it's really the best you can do. And then here are our technical specifications, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, and lastly, there's a reference here to the titanium nitride tubular arm, and that is the material or the coating on the Tonerarm itself. Now this literature is for the MK1 version. The MK2 is what we have, but it shares a lot of components except for the finish is black. All right, so that concludes this video. I hope you've enjoyed watching the journey. I absolutely loved adding the second Tonerarm to this turntable. The finish, production quality, the tolerances are exemplary like nothing I've seen in HiFi. I certainly made a ton of mistakes in the process of creating this video, and I hope it helps you avoid some of them. You know, certainly paying attention to the screw placement, which ones have to be removed. It's quite difficult to figure that out, but just go pay attention to the manual much more carefully than I did. If you're in the market for one of these wonderful turntables, keep in mind that these are built one by one by hand. They tend to have about a 6-month lead time. Now we at SkyFi Audio, we try to stay ahead of it. We have always 1 or 2 on order, so they kind of come in staggered about a month apart from each other. So if you're in the market, reach out to us and we'll hold one for you down the road. And give me a call if you want to discuss tons of options on this, right? Exactly where we're going to place the additional arm, what type of arm. There's so many fun options for this piece that I'd really enjoy discussing it. So give me a call at SkyFi Audio. My name is Fernando, 201-879-0000. I'm at extension 101. Appreciate you watching, and stay in touch.